It's an evaluation event at the Enlighteners Institute. To assess the prowess and position of learners, the educator summons them individually to access a unique gateway that directs to a chamber featuring a uniquely conditioned demon core able to assimilate and assess the learner's vigor. Subsequently, it showcases their present position and prospects. Possibility for the entire institution to witness. The majority of students end up as mere E-tier failures. Some take pride in achieving a D rank while possessing significant potential. Subsequently, the foremost intellect of the institution advances. He is the affluent scion of the most powerful guild, and all are enthusiastic to witness his outcomes. He walks into the chamber with conviction, utterly assured he will emerge as the greatest phenomenon and attain the top position in academic history. He reveals his strength, and beyond, all the pupils celebrate. He achieves a superior D rank with the promise of ascending to S rank in the future. His companions are particularly boastful, persuaded that this pompous individual possesses an extraordinary gift in the realm. One of them even chuckles at a lad called Shi Chen, who is next in succession. He is confident that Shi Chen will receive nothing but shame, yet Ji Chen merely disregards him and advances. He approaches the space similar to all others, yet on this occasion, the fiend's core is frightened. Shi Chen has not utilized any abilities thus far, and the heart already exhibits a superior D rank classification, astounding all. Subsequently, he employs the least potent skill card. He consumed voraciously from a behemoth and effortlessly attains C-grade status. As individuals continue to grapple with that, Ji Chen takes it a step further. He transitions to a more robust class card, and at this moment, the infernal heart begins to experience turmoil. The instant he unleashes his strength, a tempest develops in the heavens. The ranking display malfunctions, demonstrating S-tier capability. The educators are astonished. However, this is merely the outset. Before long, the solitary S evolves into a triumvirate of S ranks. Furthermore, subsequently, the system presents an error as a result of exceeding the maximum capacity. Presently, the educators are truly apprehensive, and they hurry into the examination chamber. Upon their entrance, the whole chamber is devastated. The infernal core is scorched, utterly lifeless. This has never occurred previously, leaving them utterly perplexed by the recent events. In the meantime, our protagonist nonchalantly strolls away. He indeed consumed the demon's heart afterward, unintentionally extinguishing it with his immense strength. So who is Shi Chen in actuality, and what makes him so powerful? Well, he's a regressor who has come back from an era in which the whole globe was subjugated by fiends. He was the final remaining individual, struggling for numerous years, until he ultimately vanquished the demon monarch by self-sabotaging in tandem with him. Subsequently, following a dazzling illumination, he regained consciousness in a bygone era within his residence hall. He experiences bewilderment and contemplates whether he has inadvertently arrived in the realm beyond. However, when he gazes out the window and observes individuals gathered there, he gradually begins to comprehend what has transpired. After a brief pause, it ultimately dawns on him that his desire has been fulfilled, and he has reverted to his collegiate years from a decade past. Merely. Subsequently, an unusual hologram materializes and conveys. Chen confirmed that the amalgamation of the might of insatiability has been finalized. While he continues to gaze out of the window, understands that he now has 3 years remaining before the inaugural Demon Lord Wrath arrives. He recalls vividly that this fiendish sovereign was the one accountable for all that ensued. Fury is the one who unlocks the portals of Inferno. Subsequently, the remaining demon sovereigns enter the human realm in succession. Our protagonist resolves to locate the site where the Demon Lord Wrath is set to materialize and eradicate him before the portals can be ajar. As soon as he breaks free from his contemplation, Chen directs his attention to the display hovering next to him, and it now showcases his statistics distinctly. Our protagonist ponders whether this is a type of game interface or platform, as he has never encountered anything of the sort in his previous existence. At that time, he had solely depended on his awakened abilities, a rare gift possessed by merely 1 in 10,000 individuals. The National Awakener University aims to enlist individuals with awakening potential, However, regrettably, during Chen's previous visit, he had utterly failed to awaken. At that moment, he had become accustomed to enduring harassment, which clarifies why he had awakened in the medical ward in such a manner. Merely. Subsequently, the system unveils an additional section and displays to him a thunderous assassin card, which he immediately identifies as the rank he had achieved in his former existence. The lad is taken aback and ponders whether he has risen to consciousness sooner this time. He swiftly chooses to experiment with it, but prior to his completion of transitioning to the class, his roommate and companion Ma Long arrives, who's an E-ranked flower singer. The unfortunate fellow has dressings on his face and has arrived to see if Chen is all right. Fortunately, Long is unable to perceive the hovering panels, leading Chen to believe that he is the sole observer of them. His companion begins to scrutinize him intently after realizing that all of Chen's wounds have vanished, and he contemplates how a non-awakened individual is mending more swiftly than someone like himself who has already undergone awakening. Our young man recalls Long from his former existence. This very roommate had succeeded in awakening while in college, but he ultimately became one of the feeblest awakeners and was tragically slain on the third day following Wrath's arrival. Chen smiles softly as he gazes at his old friend once more. Long subsequently reminds him that their assessment of rank is slated for the following day, and that they both must prepare for it. Long pities our lad, believing he has yet to regain consciousness, but he emphasizes that this evaluation is crucial if he hopes to complete his studies. While strolling through the vibrant thoroughfares, Chen nonchalantly remarks that it has been quite a while since he has encountered such a large gathering of individuals, which ultimately terrifies his roommate. Chen continuously contemplates that if he remains inactive in this existence, they are all destined to confront the same bleak future once more. As a result, he resolves to exert himself intensely and elevate his skills rapidly. Nonetheless, there exists an additional challenge, as at this juncture, the sole method for an awakener to acquire experience and progress is by vanquishing creatures within demon strongholds. These strongholds are entirely governed by the prominent guilds, indicating that the feeble, or outsiders such as him, possess virtually no opportunity to advance at all. He accesses his status interface and analyzes his statistics, contemplating his position in relation to other awakeners and even the creatures themselves. The authorities have categorized awakeners into tiers, ranging from E up to S class. Chen is aware that the majority of students at the university are mired at the E tier, with only a handful scarcely attaining D tier at best. He casts a sidelong look at his companion and silently derides him in his thoughts, feeling somewhat assured that he holds a superior rank. At that moment, a sphere unexpectedly zooms in and collides directly with the unfortunate intellectual, dislodging his spectacles and causing them to shatter. It appears they have once more encountered the tormentor Gong Chung and his minions, the identical individuals who assaulted them merely the day prior. Chung grins slyly and inquires of the geek why he failed to deliver cases of beverages when he was already aware that he was footing the bill here. Long promptly expresses his regrets and is on the verge of purchasing the drinks with his own funds, but Chen intervenes and halts him, asserting that the individual who ought to be expressing remorse in this situation is, in fact, Chung. The instant he encounters the tormentor once more, Chen is drawn back into the agonizing recollections of his history. In those days, they would attempt to submerge him in basin water, and rather than experiencing any remorse, they would claim they were merely prompting him to awaken. On that day, they ceased only when Chen ultimately lost consciousness. Long had hurried to verify his well-being at that moment. However, as soon as Chung perceived Chen utter any words, he arrived, returned solely to cause him additional pain. Currently, Chen has resolved to impart a significant lesson to these tormentors. Following. Upon hearing Chen vocalize, Chung and his followers begin advancing once more, clearly prepared to silence him for good. Our protagonist gazes directly at Chung, fully aware that this individual only targets the vulnerable due to his elder sibling being a prominent figure as the student council president. As the aggressor advances, the pupils in the vicinity start to assemble, already experiencing sympathy for Chen as they anticipate he will be assaulted once more. As Chung approaches him, he inquires again about what Chen had just mentioned. However, Chen serenely reiterates that he ought to cease troubling them from this point forward. Upon hearing this, Chung's anger flares, and he swiftly delivers a blow to him. This. At that moment, Chen elevates his fist and effortlessly deflects the assault even, repelling the tormentor. all individuals. Those surrounding them are left astonished because, to their knowledge, Chen has yet to awaken, yet he effortlessly thwarted a powerful assault as if it were trivial. Chung becomes increasingly enraged and charges forward once more, as Chen tranquilly readies himself and transitions his class to Electric Assassin. Long remains motionless in astonishment as Chung engages his invulnerable demon armor and propels himself ahead with a forceful blow. Prior to being able to approach, Chen rushes forward and strikes him forcefully, departed with a bolt of electrifying force. All individuals. Bystanders are astounded as the purported weakling Chen propels the school tormentor through the air with a single strike. Despite enduring such severe defeat, Chung remains agitated and yells on his subordinates to intervene and exact retribution on his behalf. In the meantime, his underlings are already rattled after witnessing what Chen has just accomplished. Chung compels himself to rise once more and rushes toward our protagonist again, yet. Once again, he is subdued and thrown aside without any opportunity. Observing their purported leader being overwhelmed in such a manner, minions swiftly comprehend that they possess no opportunity whatsoever and promptly flee. The unfortunate intellectual who observes all of this is left utterly astonished, unable to shut his mouth as he grapples with the reality that his roommate, who was assaulted just the day before, has abruptly transformed into someone so formidable. Chen, conversely, understands that much like in his previous existence, he can transition into his lethal persona at any moment. And, even at level 1, his attributes are sufficient to manage low-tier awakeners. This implies that his present standing ought to be no lower than D, but there remains one aspect he has yet to verify. Despite vanquishing an opponent, the system has not awarded him any progression in rank. Contemplating. Regarding this, Chen nearly proceeds to eliminate the bully entirely, as those nearby observe and are filled with anxiety. Merely at the last instant, the deputy president of the student assembly, Ling Yu, intervenes and instructs Chen to cease. She emphasizes that even if Chung was culpable, this degree of violence is already excessive. She guarantees him that the tormentor will not have the audacity to harass him once more, and from that our protagonist ultimately resolves to release him. As he withdraws, and Chen begins to ponder why the student council is so zealous to intervene and rescue someone like Chung, despite the fact that he was only feigning and had no genuine intent to kill him. He understands that individuals like these tormentors must face appropriate consequences. Alternatively, they will continue to pursue anyone more vulnerable than themselves, repeatedly. Chen then departs alongside his roommate. As the bully's minions observe him from afar, concealed and murmuring to one another, they resolve never to entertain the idea of antagonizing Chen again. That evening, as Long attempts to convey to the other housemates how Chen has transformed into an absurdly powerful lightning assassin, yet none of them regard his statements with any seriousness. Long continues to elaborate on how their previously feeble companion was able to defeat Chung with such severity. However, Xiang Zuo, an E-ranked nucleus sorcerer, regards it as a jest. Zuo inquires whether Chen has genuinely ascended to such prominence. If so, why is he still engaged in this level of training? He contends that if an individual is a true awakener, they would no longer require such rudimentary physical conditioning. Upon hearing this, the gaming housemate Xiang Yu remarks that based on what he's listening to, it appears that Long must have suffered a significant blow to the head. Zuo persists, stating that the 4 of them have been assigned to this dorm because they rank the lowest, and irrespective of their actions, that reality will remain unchanged. He additionally asserts that he is the most powerful of the quartet, whereas Long and Yu merely serve as supplementary incantation performers. He tenses slightly, while reminding himself that there is no possibility Chen could have transformed into a lightning assassin. He senses, more self-assured than at any other time, and aspires that he could potentially advance in status during the concluding examination prior to their commencement tomorrow. In the meantime, the head of the student council, Gong Ting, exits after completing a training exercise in an E-tier demon hideout, accompanied by Ling Yu. He observes his younger sibling lingering nearby and inquires about his actions. Chen expresses that as long as the individual who defeated him remains present, he cannot find solace even in sleep. Chen persistently urges his sibling, striving to persuade him that he must seek retribution on his behalf. Ting quietly reassures him that he will take care of the turmoil he has caused. Subsequently, at the dinner table, the vice president inquires of Ting regarding his strategy for addressing the predicament, to which Ting responds by questioning her if the boy truly possesses the strength that his sibling asserts. Ling Yu interjects, noting her awareness of the fact that there are fewer than 10 D-rank students throughout the entire institution, all of whom he has already enlisted into his group. She elaborates that others lack the same access to demon lairs as he does, indicating that no ordinary individual should be capable of opposing him. On the opposite side, Chen continues to sprint wildly while becoming soaked by the downpour. He establishes a goal of completing 20 entire kilometers while bearing a pack weighing 100 kilograms, nearly double his own mass. He recognizes the significance of fundamental training in enhancing the maximum threshold of an awakener's strength, as a more robust physique is essential for wielding advanced abilities. As he sprints, he remembers how his sole relative, his sister, was slain when the wrath of the demon sovereign erupted into the mortal realm. The demon sovereign annihilated countless mortals in a heartbeat, and his sibling perished before his very eyes. He establishes vanquishing this demon monarch as his primary objective, since that instant marked the onset of all the devastation. Chen constantly contemplates that if the Dark Overlord is already gaining power, despite having 3 years remaining until his emergence, he must surpass that development to have any hope of victory. Subsequently, his sibling Si Yun contacts him. Listening to her voice once more, after such an extended period, renders him utterly speechless for a brief instant. His sibling clarifies that she was unable to reach out sooner due to her involvement in a contest, and she suggests that their rental issue could be resolved if she succeeds in obtaining an award. As she continues to speak, Chen attentively listens and grins, experiencing a steadfast determination to safeguard her and provide her with the life she rightfully merits this time. Upon concluding the call, he resumes his training regimen and finishes 3 additional laps around the campus. Once he has completed this, he proceeds directly to take a shower, sensing that he is gradually acclimating to this youthful physique that possesses significant promise for development. He takes a seat and begins to ponder the infernal realms that can only be accessed by the affluent. To enhance his power, he realizes that he must find a way to conquer creatures. As he wrestles with this dilemma, he ultimately drifts off to slumber and discovers himself ensnared in the indulgence framework. He arrives in an unfamiliar location and begins to contemplate whether this is merely an odd fantasy. In the meantime, outside, Long searches for Chen and ponders where he has unexpectedly vanished. Within that peculiar realm, Chen observes an enormous structure looming before him. Yet prior to him being able to fully comprehend it, a collective of E-tier cloud fighters, the Death Hounds, materialize as though to welcome him. Chen swiftly becomes concerned that he may have inadvertently stepped into a realm of demons, and promptly alters his classification. He opts to confront the creatures initially and resolve the remaining issues subsequently as they have emerged unexpectedly. The lad effortlessly dispatches the canines that are all noise and no menace, gathering treasures from them. He swiftly advances to 2 and grins, contemplating that he may have fortuitously encountered a demon realm. At that moment, a formidable creature emerges, and Chen overcomes it with equal ease, slicing through it as if it were inconsequential, which allows him to advance once more. The experience points he acquires from the boss are significantly greater than those obtained from the standard creatures of the same level that he vanquished previously. Immediately thereafter, the chief creature's form is designated as consumable, causing Chen to ponder the significance of that. He remembers the voracious energy he observed previously in the system interface and extends his hand to examine it. The consumption is accomplished immediately, and the creature becomes engulfed within a card. Chen is left astonished as he discovers he can transform vanquished creatures into practical categories. He swiftly comprehends that. This is the identical type of capability possessed by the demon sovereign Lan Yu, and the notion that he now possesses a strength akin to that of a demon sovereign unsettles him. In this realm, It is inherent that each individual is born with merely one class, except for a few who may possess two. However, Chen now had the capacity to wield as many classes as he desired. He contemplates what actions he took to acquire such extraordinary influence, and what the sinister edifice looming before him truly represents. As a multitude of inquiries accumulate in his thoughts, an intense feeling overwhelms him, and a fiend materializes, grasping two S-tier swords in its grasp. The demon is evidently classified as S rank, indicating that Chen stands little to no chance of conquering it. Chen is aware that he is significantly overpowered, yet he conjures a thunderous blade to engage in combat as a wager for his survival. Another peculiar aspect is that, for some inexplicable reason, the fiend confronting him is aware of his name. As time progresses, the fiend exchanges strikes with Chen, even though it is evident that all it is doing is playing with him. The fiend intentionally steers clear of striking critical areas and continues to bring him down repeatedly. Upon driving Chen to his brink, the fiend ultimately utters and presents him with the choice to remain and protect the infernal tower alongside it if he wishes to endure. As Chen continues to resist, the fiend viciously strikes at his arm. It menaces to conclude his existence and clarifies that it has been lenient up until now solely because Chen is the sole individual capable of arriving at this location. The fiend implores him again to reevaluate, yet Chen remains optimistic and declines once more. Despite the peril he is exposing himself to, he cries out. As he propels himself forward, resolute to complete the task, he strikes once more. Throughout this entire period, he has been examining the demon's actions and has discovered the 0.4 second preparation period prior to each strike. He recognizes that he can utilize that brief interval to meticulously scrutinize the orientation of the creature's wrist and evade the assault just in the nick of time. Moreover, he has identified a 0.2 second recuperation delay that could provide him with a slight yet crucial advantage, initiating while the fiend is vulnerable, and he intends to utilize that exact instant to target its core. Additionally, although he successfully executes this perilous tactic, he is acutely aware that a D-rank individual like himself cannot entirely overcome an S-rank opponent. Thus, his primary objective is to immobilize the demon for a sufficient duration to forge a chance for escape. He performs precisely that, and then sprints towards the sole illumination he can perceive, wishing it could potentially serve as a genuine escape from this locale. Nevertheless, precisely when he arrives at the origin, it abruptly disappears, and the demon reveals to him that it was simply a mirage, and that the exit he had envisioned is non-existent in this location. The demon elaborates that this fortress is not genuinely a den of demons, yet he conveys admiration for the boy's swift capacity to pinpoint shortcomings in his assaults. The demon is ultimately unveiled as the Purgatorial Rakshasa, and remarks to Chen that he truly possesses the ability to instill hope. As Chen meticulously examines the demon's physique, he suddenly comprehends with astonishment that he has encountered this exact visage previously on the demon sovereign, Lan Yu. The protagonist reminisces about the confrontation where everything ultimately concluded. The final clash he engaged in prior to the setback. His adversary was not a typical fiend. Throughout their confrontation, the being initially morphed into a dragon, subsequently transformed its classification into various fearsome, high-ranking creatures. It brandished searing lava, toxic creepers, along with lightning even more formidable than his. Among all those changes, nevertheless, the individual that genuinely captivated his interest was the shape that appeared identical to the fiend positioned in front of him at this moment. A haunting awareness dawns on him. Each and every metamorphosis must have been integral to Demon King Lan Yu's powers. Given that strength resides within him. The fiend he perceives at this moment is merely the essence of indulgence, assimilated within his being. His astute reasoning profoundly captivates the demon. It coolly declares that he is indeed deserving of inheriting the strength that resides within this entire realm. Chen scowls, perplexed by the implications of everything within the realm. Abruptly, a luminous void key manifests in the demon's grasp. It is the sole means for an individual to access and exit the massive tower looming behind him. The fiend elucidates that the demon monarch Lan Yu consumed an immeasurable multitude of formidable beasts. Protecting the citadel that encases the most unyielding of them was its hallowed obligation. However, at this moment, it opts to entrust that precise key to him. Rakshasa desires for him to consume those fiends, increase in power, and fulfill the task on its behalf. Baffled, Chen inquires as to why a fiend would ever assist a human. In its reply, the entity discloses that even amidst the demonic domain, there exist virtuous souls as well as malevolent ones. One such fiend annihilated its entire tribe solely for pleasure, akin to a perverse bloodbath performed for amusement. Given that day, it had long anticipated an opportunity to exact retribution on that malevolent scoundrel. Now, it is convinced it has discovered the individual capable of fulfilling that desire. It informs our protagonist that someone was correct in identifying him as their greatest prospect for retribution. Chen promptly inquires about the identity of that person. The demon merely responds that all solutions lie within the tower, articulating in an enigmatic manner reminiscent of a time-worn oracle. In its concluding utterance, it surrenders all of its residual strength to him. In exchange, the demon reveals that he must ascend to be the most formidable human on the globe. It will be a challenging endeavor to consume every last one of those savage creatures lurking within the tower. In opposition to him, every one of those crafty beings will continue to pose a significant obstacle to conquer. The demon issues its ultimate caution, asserting that only an individual with an insatiable desire for greater strength is worthy of the purgatory Rakshasa's might. That is the drive necessary to eliminate every demon sovereign in existence. With that, his form condenses into a searing realm of vitality for Chen to absorb. He swiftly ascends 8 tiers and obtains a pair of Rakshasa's blades. Lacking. After some reluctance, he acknowledges the task, pledging to fulfill the last desire of the fallen Star Warrior as he had sworn. At the pinnacle of the stat enhancements, he gains the capability to siphon energy from both deceased humans and demons, in addition to mastering gravity control. In the early hours, he gradually unveils his gaze, awoke within the residence hall, as if it were just another ordinary day. He instantly sits up straight, as a booming voice reverberates throughout the space. His housemates are already getting ready and urge him to hurry if he intends to arrive at school punctually. Upon realizing that his physique is entirely unscathed and whole, he wonders if all he endured was merely an eccentric illusion. Nevertheless, his revised statistics affirm that this is not the situation whatsoever. Everything he observed persisted. Upon leaping from Tier 2 to Tier 10 in a single night, he finds himself pondering what position he currently occupies. At that moment, his housemate starts teasing him. He mentions how a particular individual was unabashedly extolling his virtues the other evening, elaborating on how impressive and extraordinarily formidable he allegedly has become. Ma Long discreetly glances from the other side of the room, feigning innocence as though he were not involved. Regardless, his housemate prompts him to demonstrate his abilities during the evaluation process. This will determine who possesses the strength to retain the title of dormitory monarch. As he makes his way to school, the self-styled dorm monarch confidently instructs his supposed subjects that each hierarchy is segmented into 3 distinct levels. Thus, although they are all fundamentally E-rank peasants, he at least positions himself above the other lower echelon E failures as a self-assured mid-E ranker. He parades about with an air of superiority, believing the disparity between each tier is significantly vast. Enthusiastic and excessively self-assured, The fool asserts that he feels extraordinarily powerful, convinced that he must have ascended to a higher tier since their last evaluation. Frustrated to the core, Ma Long instructs our friend to cease fooling around and give his all, aiming to at least achieve a D rank today. In doing so, perhaps the dorm king will finally silence his incessant chatter for once. Before long, the young men reach the educational institution, where all are eagerly assembled for the classification ceremony. Intimidators saunter about as if they possess the entire grounds, belittling anyone who has the audacity to glance at them askew. Even the dorm monarch's self-satisfied smirk vanishes as swiftly as his progenitor did the moment he lays eyes on them. However, similar to him, the tormentors almost falter in their resolve as well. Unexpectedly, they begin to kneel reverently before Big Brother Chen without any reluctance. His housemates gradually start to comprehend that perhaps everything Ma Long expressed was not entirely absurd after all. Our lad disregards the jesters and merely attends to his own affairs. At that moment, a fresh contender chooses to confront him. The individual who serves as the school's security, Student Council Representative Jian, extends a remarkably courteous caution. Evidently, the student council leader personally dispatched him to reprimand the fool who had the audacity to lay a hand on his cherished younger sibling. All of Chen's companions promptly disperse and seek refuge. They are filled with dread at the mention of Jian, the enforcer responsible for managing all the illicit tasks for the student council president. His housemates are baffled as to why the D-rank creature has suddenly set its sights on our protagonist in this manner. He strides directly into Chen's intimate vicinity. The president's faithful attendant brags that his acute olfactory ability enables him to assess precisely how formidable a person is. And at this moment, all he can detect from him is a pitiable, feeble failure. Entertained by the affront, our lad retaliates without delay. Jian utterly loses his sanity the instant he is referred to as a mutt. Prior to a confrontation erupting, the oversized canine's owner commands him to desist to avoid creating a spectacle in public. Upon conducting some investigation, he uncovered that his younger sibling was the one who instigated the altercation initially. Enduring a beating was merely the outcome of striking someone evidently larger than himself. That being noted, the president casts him a look more piercing than blades. However, our protagonist is not in the least bit daunted. At that instant, an instructor declares that the ranking evaluation ceremony is set to commence and asks all attending students to advance when their name is mentioned. Upon hearing this, the president informs his dog that it's time to depart. He presumes this was a singular occurrence and that Chen will refrain from creating any further issues following their intimidation. Observing from an elevated vantage point, an individual inquisitively inquires of the vice president regarding her presence at the ranking ceremony today. He ponders whether a newcomer has piqued her curiosity. The woman beams subtly, remarking that this year promises to be rather intriguing. Before long, Shangzhou's designation is proclaimed. The residence monarch experiences a tinge of apprehension as he crosses the threshold. The ambiance undergoes a dramatic transformation on the opposite side. Indeed, the evaluation is performed individually within a unique infernal den. Within this space, a demon heart, linked to cables, gauges an awakener's status and capability by siphoning their energy. When the initiators unleash their most potent force, the signal transmits back to the planet where the outcome of their evaluation is disclosed. The dormitory monarch's position proves to be identical to the previous occasion. Nevertheless, the instructor appears baffled when his potential takes more time than anticipated to manifest. Ma Long gazes intently at the fluctuating figure. Following a prolonged period of anticipation, Shangzhou's utmost capability is disclosed to be merely C. The monarch steps outside appearing disheartened, coming to terms with the fact that all the advancements he believed he had achieved were merely a figment of his imagination. His housemates attempt to console him, expressing that they are all in a similar situation regardless. Trapped in E tier, with the capability to attain C tier at most. A handful. Shortly thereafter, the president's sycophant strides out with confidence. Although he remains at a lower D rank, he possesses the capability to ascend to A. Chen's housemates start to relinquish all optimism, as they have observed nearly 10 students attain D rank thus far. Even the educators are astonished that such a significant number of students have already achieved grade D. It is uncommon for students lacking genuine combat exposure to ascend beyond E rank. Eagerly, they summon the following student, the leader, who bears the collective hopes of all. All gazes shift to Gong Ting, the pupil who has already attained the position of guildmaster, as he steps onto the platform. Our lad remains composed nonetheless, and waits patiently for the outcomes. Everyone. Within the institution, it is well understood that Gong Ting was merely a lower D rank 2 years prior. The historical documentation for the pinnacle classification in the academy has been middle D rank, prompting speculation about whether the president will ultimately elevate the standard. Within the infernal stronghold, the demon heart's gaze gradually unveils itself in his company. The leader cannot fully express all that he possesses. Nevertheless, he harbors an ardent ambition to make a spectacular exit at the commencement ceremony, etching his name into the annals of history as the foremost achiever. When the instructors observe his prospective mark shimmering in gold, they flutter their eyelashes in astonishment. Their doubts are validated, as Gong Ting's exceptional D rank utterly astonishes them. Moreover, exhilaration surges among the spectators at the glimpse of the inaugural prospective S rank in history. The president's subordinates fawn over their leader incessantly. Meanwhile, Chen's housemates seethe with envy as they witness a legend being forged right before them. The instructors discreetly converse amongst one another that the information must be communicated promptly to the administration. They must handle their invaluable S-rank contender with the highest level of attention, ensuring that he remains within the borders of the nation. In addition, he is the most youthful pupil associated with the guild at the academy. The institution's name is virtually assured to capture the spotlight. Viewing from a higher vantage point, Principal Yuan Long comprehends that Vice President Ling Yu was already aware of his capabilities. That is precisely the reason she attended in person to observe the event. Nevertheless, she adds excitement by mentioning that he wasn't the sole individual she came to scrutinize today. In addition to the ostentatious leader, there is another pupil she considers significantly more captivating. As expected, that particular student is the next individual summoned to the stage. Jean conceives a brilliant notion and resolves to mock the enigmatic urban myth, as he implores it not to manifest as yet another E-rank waste, akin to his housemates. He claims they will become a subject of ridicule if that occurs, and it ought to be regarded as a shame for them to even show up at such an esteemed occasion in the beginning. Long supports his companion and assertively declares that he will astonish everyone. The audience gazes in complete expectation as Chen ultimately steps into the demon hideout. The infernal core immediately detects a surge of overwhelming tension as Chen draws near. The protagonist remembers that the most effective method for an awakener to ensure a stable future is to affiliate with a prestigious guild. He understands that the sole route to that objective resides in exceptional execution during the final combat evaluation, where aspirants are required to select individuals of their preference to assemble a team of 10 individuals. The team that secures the foremost position gains immediate enlistment into the country's elite imperial guild. Thus, the objective of this examination is distinctly apparent to all observers. Jean initiates the hiring process and presents another subpar D-rank candidate to his supervisor, while he confidently asserts that their faction is now entirely assembled. He elaborates that they have secured all the D ranks, in addition to the president's sibling, on their roster, leaving no chance for them to fall short of first place whatsoever. Chen recognizes that capable students will ultimately come together to establish the most formidable group. Although the most vulnerable will similarly congregate, this results in a harsh atmosphere of natural selection, where fragile connections are discarded and eradicated without reluctance. Following. As time elapses, Long begins to experience unease regarding why the display exhibits no alterations whatsoever. And the throng swiftly concludes that Chen must be so feeble that the system cannot even accurately acknowledge his existence. Chen then persuades Ting that the other students are merely worthless, and thus they ought to depart without squandering any further time in this place. Nevertheless, just as they get ready to depart, the display abruptly flashes and discloses a prominent D classification label that plunges the whole audience into turmoil as astonishment envelops their expressions. The president, together with the student council, similarly responds in astonishment to this unforeseen outcome. However, the the system quickly identifies an unusual anomaly in the outcomes. It appears that Chen utilizes the system to adjust how his level 10 foundational attributes and his unaltered physical state are interpreted during assessment. Upon observing a D rank, he changes his class to the Hellish Death Monarch, which represents his most feeble consumed class to date. The position immediately transforms from elevated D to moderate C, which thoroughly astonishes the audience, while the assembly finds it difficult to trust that the device functions correctly at all, even. The researchers start to doubt the circumstances as they ponder why the outcomes persistently fluctuate. And before long, they begin to suspect that the apparatus may indeed be failing irreparably. At that precise instant, a turmoil emerges within the infernal core, and the outcomes diverge yet again in an unusual way. Chen observes this and chooses to transition to a more formidable class, thus becoming the Purgatory Rakshasa. The fiendish core grows uneasy. As a fierce tempest brews beyond the demon hideout, Jian cries out in bewilderment, regards it as a heavenly portent, indicating that history is reshaping itself, as the residence has given rise to a magnificent behemoth. In the subsequent instant, the possibility glimmers at S rank, which results in both the researchers and President Ting was utterly astonished by what they had just observed. Nevertheless, the system abruptly presents an alert that the user's capacity surpasses its upper limit and persists unnoticed beneath existing thresholds. Jian's. His mind nearly ceases to function. Reminiscent of a blue screen of death, his spirit almost departs from his corporeal form in sheer astonishment. As the system starts to disintegrate under immense strain, the researchers hastily advance an alarm to guarantee that no danger befalls the pupil under any circumstances. However, upon their eventual arrival, they become immobilized in astonishment upon discovering a desiccated raisin resting in the place where the fiend's heart once resided, since it has been entirely depleted due to excessive utilization. It becomes evident that Jian may have frightened it just a tad excessively. Despite this, ultimately consumes it and acquires the capacity to perceive anyone's status, while also obtaining alerts regarding possible threats in the vicinity. He exits the fiend's den and senses, delightfully astonished as each individual's position is revealed before him. But shortly thereafter, he swiftly observes that the president possesses, concealed his genuine capabilities, and ultimately reveals himself to be merely an average C rank at most. The researchers stroll out in an uncomfortable fashion and announce to everyone that the demon heart has experienced a cardiac event due to excessive pressure, necessitating the suspension of additional testing for the time being. They designate Chen's statistics as a likely mistake and declare that a comprehensive report will be submitted to the senior officials for evaluation. The other students are instructed to come back the following day for their evaluation, as a new apparatus will be prepared for examination by that time without any additional complications. During the return journey, Chen's housemates begin to elevate his spirits and regard him as an unparalleled champion following his recent feat in front of the entire crowd. Chen evidently struggles to manage the envy and labels Chen a charlatan, while he seeks restitution for damaging the apparatus and squandering the council's time like a disgruntled participant. Just as Chen approaches his threshold with the patient and readies himself to confront the individual immediately, Ting enters and immediately confronts Jian. The president cautions him against showing disrespect to their colleague, leaving Jian taken aback in that moment. And then, Ting reaches out his hand as he beckons the recently unveiled force to become a part of his team. Throughout the entirety, he assuredly declares that collectively they will attain the utmost record in history, without a doubt. Jian begins to experience a complete psychological collapse in the background, as he realizes that someone will have to be removed from the squad to accommodate Chen, and this predicament will undoubtedly create discord among the brothers. In his view, becoming part of Ting's squad nearly ensures a top position without any uncertainty, prompting him to ponder what sets Chen apart, especially when others couldn't even secure a place in this roster, despite their attempts. He compels himself to set aside his ego and, with evident reluctance, accepts Chen into the team, resting a hand on the champion's shoulder with marked hesitation. swiftly swats his hand aside and resolutely declares that he has absolutely no desire to associate with them whatsoever. This reply causes Jian to perspire profusely, while Ting observes the entire interaction in quietude, displaying no response. Jin snaps at Chen, asserting that he is completely oblivious to his actions, considering their team currently holds the top position in the entire school without any rivals. Chen turns away and departs, while asserting that it has no relevance to them, labeling their entire assembly as excessively loud to manage for even a brief period. He advises them not to disturb him once more, and Jian begins to seethe with rage and utter disdain immediately following that demeaning rejection. The entire student body swiftly starts to chatter about Chen's rejection, with the majority presuming that he intends to claim the top position solely for himself, following that mid-level C-rank disclosure. The entire institution now has an ideal spectacle to relish, as the drama begins to unravel in real time. In the meantime, Chen's housemates take great pleasure in the expression of utter disgrace that washes over Jian and Ting's faces following that merciless public dismissal. The president reassures Jian not to fret about Chen pursuing his own intentions, all the while maintaining his equanimity. Simultaneously, the headmaster, who had been observing the entire situation, exhales a profound breath of disillusionment as the boys declined to collaborate as he had initially envisioned. He aspired for them to unite and set a new academic milestone together. However, Ling asserts that the circumstances become significantly more captivating in this manner instead. She clarifies that Ting was raised in privilege, thus this type of rejection will undoubtedly be perceived as a blatant declaration of hostility in his thoughts, she indicates. The notion that their leader is not an individual who is simple to manage in any situation once his ego is bruised like this. Jian persists in expressing dissatisfaction and asserts that Chen possesses an exaggerated sense of self-worth due to a testing mistake that resulted in a C grade. However, Ting suggests that the outcome may actually be accurate. He concedes that, despite the odds appearing nearly negligible, he cannot permit anyone to usurp his top position under any circumstances. Jian then remembers that Chen probably represents an ordinary student devoid of any genuine combat experience, whereas the council members continue to be elitists who have clandestinely honed their skills within a demon stronghold for an extended period to attain their present proficiency. He proposes that he ought to personally confront Chen to impart a lesson for his audacity, but Ting interrupts that train of thought and inquires whether their leader truly appears trivial enough to behave in such a manner. Jian quickly recognizes his error and extends an apology, as Ting cancels their karaoke arrangement and instructs Jian to manage everything independently without any additional direction. He states in a frigid manner that whatever Jian decides to pursue is of no concern to him, and Jian comprehends the communication immediately without requiring additional clarification. Approximately 10 minutes later, a source approaches Jian and conveys that Chen has already departed from the school after stating that he needed to head home for a short period. He further clarifies that Chen exited without pausing to have a meal, rendering the circumstance even more advantageous. Jian perceives this as a celestial influence and begins to feel exhilarated by the opportunity to confront him mercilessly in uncharted territory where no one can intervene. While Chen traverses the roadway, he remembers that in his former existence, a prominent guild encountered a calamity while attempting to seize a demon stronghold situated within the realm of Saint He country. Within that den, they came across an unprecedented creature referred to as Wrath, which resulted in the swift obliteration of the entire Peak team without any opposition. The creature then fled into the human realm and unleashed widespread devastation in every direction. Even though that recollection is fragmented, Chen remains resolute and devises a strategy to uncover that identical demon hideout in this lifetime. 2. To initiate this strategy, Chen requires a substantial sum of money, prompting him to proceed to the Mithril Monster Exchange Center without any reluctance. He remembers that this trading center affiliated with the Mithril Guild eventually evolves into the most substantial material exchange hub in the whole nation within the forthcoming timeline. In this realm, the prowess of an awakener is assessed according to the caliber of gear and armaments they own, and the trade serves as a vital connection for acquiring and vending these commodities. Nonetheless, for Chen, this location merely functions as a swift and uncomplicated means to generate some income temporarily before he advances toward his more significant aspirations. Thus, he strides directly in and showcases several fangs to the broker, who inspects them with meticulous attention and evident skepticism. He inquires how a scholar like him came to possess such an object. Thus, Chen serenely clarifies that it fell from a formidable creature he vanquished previously. The broker responds with astonishment, asserting he has never encountered such an artifact before. Yet, his aide intervenes and clarifies that the fangs originate from E-class creatures known as Beast Sang-sun. She remembers that documentation indicates these fangs can be fashioned into an E-grade cloud-type staff, or they can be pulverized for diverse applications. The conceited dealer interrupts her and carelessly tosses the fang back onto the table, asserting that an E-grade artifact holds minimal worth in any case. He starts to boast that their exchange functions as an exclusive VIP network, catering solely to individuals of high status and those who possess awakening abilities. He asserts that he exclusively manages D-grade items and higher, using this rationale to dismiss any consideration of a mere E-grade item. In his thoughts, he laments the recent scarcity of elite clientele, and perceives no advantage in engaging with someone of lower rank, as it offers no aid in advancing his own prospects. He refers to the entire circumstance as an annoyance, and shifts the duty onto his aide, Li, without a second consideration as he moves aside. She, graciously, presents Chen with a packet of currency and inquires if he needs assistance with anything further apart from this exchange. Chen assesses the sum of 18,000 and concludes that it will alleviate his rental concerns for the time being with minimal strain. He subsequently retrieves the radiant greatsword that he acquired from the Purgatory Rakshasa, that promptly seizes her complete focus. Even though she has never encountered anything similar previously, she approximates that it is likely a B-grade product, or potentially an A-grade one at the very least. The broker re-enters with elevated eyebrows and dismisses her assertion as sheer delusion, noting that A-grade merchandise typically fetches approximately 1 million. He contends that he has been employed there for numerous years and has never observed anything remotely resembling an A-grade item in actuality. At that instant, the store proprietor appears and tranquilly asserts that the merchandise displayed here is neither A-grade nor B-grade whatsoever. The broker commends his supervisor's astute discernment and asserts that he was already aware that an ordinary student could never hold something of significant worth like that. Nonetheless, the proprietor clarifies that the armament unmistakably hails from the realms of purgatory, and discloses that it is, in fact, an S-grade item. Both the broker and the aide nearly experience a systemic collapse upon hearing that astonishing revelation, their faces locking in incredulity. The proprietor promptly takes hold of Chen's hands and graciously greets him as a distinguished visitor with the highest regard. He subsequently beckons Chen to accompany him into the VIP suite and urges him to voice any wishes he may have without reservation. In the meantime, Chen experiences a sense of fulfillment as he finally observes that the proprietor, Qingzhi, has unveiled himself exactly as anticipated. Once they've established themselves in the exclusive chamber, the guild leader inquires about the price he wishes to set for the weapon. Hour. The young lad promptly responds with 1 million, which astonishes the emerald-haired individual. The supervisor informs him that it could yield a minimum of several tens of millions, as it is exceedingly precious. Nevertheless, Chen informs him that he merely desires to utilize the greatsword as security for a $1 million loan for a duration of 1 month. That renders the man even more astonished, as he comprehends that our young lad is extraordinarily intelligent, and ponders who precisely he is. Chen states that he will settle the principal sum within 30 days and the supplementary interest the following month. Prior to responding, the guild leader instructs the young woman to exit so the adults can deliberate on matters. Once the area is safe, the man declares that he is aware Chen hails from the National Awakener University, where the upperclassmen are on the verge of graduating. He persists, stating that he is aware the final examination is scheduled for 30 days from now, and that the prize will amount to 1 million. The individual then straightforwardly inquires whether our protagonist is entirely confident that he will excel on that examination. The guild. The supervisor then taps into his investigative instincts and discerns that Chen is in desperate need of funds and would not be present unless it were his final recourse. Ultimately, he announces that he will provide him with 1.5 million right away, entirely interest-free. Extending his hand, he grins and remarks that this will mark the beginning of a splendid companionship. Chen is rendered speechless by the exhibition, and the gentleman further comforts him, assuring that not a solitary word will escape from this chamber. He merely requests that, in exchange, our young lad should visit this guild whenever he wishes to exchange something else. Chen contemplates that this individual successfully unraveled everything with such ease, yet still refrained from deceiving him. He now comprehends why the guild leader ascends to prominence in the future. The young lad subsequently stirs his hand while contemplating that he requires formidable allies if he ever hopes to vanquish the demon sovereign. A brief interval. Subsequently, the agreement is finalized and the funds are transferred to his account immediately. The guild leader subsequently inquires whether he requires to lend a weapon for the competition, as he has just relinquished his. Although he lacks any S-rank gear, he still possesses an abundance of premium equipment to select from. Chen assures him not to be concerned, then effortlessly calls forth the additional greatsword he acquired previously, departing the guild members utterly astonished. With that, our young man bids farewell, while the guild leader promptly elevates the pink-haired girl to supervisor for acquiring such a prestigious client. Prior to Chen's departure, he discerns that he neglected to purchase an item and pivots back toward the register. Several hours later, he is currently positioned in front of a bus shelter. He recalls that in his previous life, he struggled a lot to get to the top, and people treated him like trash. He toiled through countless shifts merely to cover his expenses, and the two siblings were compelled to exist nearly as destitute individuals to survive each month. Yuan succeeded in gaining admission to her ideal university at that time, yet she relinquished it and convinced herself that the university was too distant from her beloved sibling. However, in truth, she was apprehensive about imposing additional financial strain on him. Returning to the current moment, he ponders why she has not arrived and begins to survey his surroundings. At that moment, a voice beckons to him, deriding him as foolish for looking near the entrance rather than the exit. Dragging her large suitcase, she informs him that they are financially depleted once more due to the rent exhausting their funds. Nevertheless, our young man remains frozen in utter astonishment, as it has been 7 years since their last encounter. She requests his assistance with her belongings. Receiving no reply, she gestures her hand before him, attempting to rouse him from his stupor. In that instant, Chen abruptly leaps ahead and embraces her firmly, taking her off guard. Following a brief period of discomfort, she employs the prohibited jabbing method to escape his hold, as she admonishes him for almost choking her. She remarks that he has been behaving rather suspiciously of late, and questions whether his infatuation has ultimately turned him down, but he dismisses it casually. The pair then commence strolling, as she persists in chattering about her assessments. Nevertheless, Chen finds immense joy in attending to all matters, expressing he will always ensure that nothing befalls her in this lifetime. In the interim, within a narrow passage, several ruffians linger, anticipating an event. Upon verifying that our protagonist will traverse this area, Jian instructs his henchmen to remain inconspicuous until their quarry arrives, at which point they will collectively spring a trap on him. With an insane grin plastered across his visage, he reassures himself that he will undoubtedly exact retribution on the individual for his actions. 1. One of the ruffians inquires whether they might face consequences if the scenario intensifies from this point. The Overcast. The assassin informs him that he originally intended to impart a lesson to that individual, but his latest confrontation has genuinely infuriated him. Reflecting on the embarrassment inflicted by Chen, he instructs the refuse bags to spare something for him and vows that he will impart a lesson to our protagonist that he will remember forever. Jian rambles on about being the finest cloud assassin in existence and begins to salivate as he envisions the expression on his victim's face. Returning to our protagonist, Jian recalls him that he has been behaving quite unusually and speculates whether it is due to the examinations. She brushes it aside and asserts that a feeble individual like him shouldn't ponder it excessively. The sibling reminds him that he consistently advised her to persevere, regardless of the circumstances, and to entrust the remainder to destiny. In an effort to elevate his mood, she begins to serenade him with an inspiring tune as they stroll into the passageway. Chen is pleasantly astonished that she was able to observe his transformation so effortlessly, yet she understands that she remains unaware of his newfound abilities and wealth. Listening, his assured response that he is well, she ponders whether it is merely his masculine pride articulating. Yun shakes her head as she contemplates that her brother is ultimately maturing into a man. In the background, one of the Desden, the ruffians inform Jian that there is a female companion with their objective. This exhilarates the individual immensely, as the passage lacks surveillance cameras, rendering Chris Hansen unable to apprehend them. Nevertheless, our young lad immediately perceives the malevolent motives and discovers that it is those identical lowlives from the student council. Removing a pair of generic earbuds, he positions them in his sister's auditory canals and instructs her to pay attention to a tune he has recently begun to appreciate, which surprises her, as he seldom indulges in music. Yet she chooses to participate in order to gain a deeper insight into him. He then spins around and glares fiercely at the lowlives, who are gradually progressing. As the melody resonates in the backdrop, the confrontation at last commences as the goons surge ahead. Chen promptly transitions to his lightning course and reminisces that it has been 7 years since he lost his sole family member, and only now has he just been reunited with her. Overwhelmed with rage, he ponders from which magician's top hat these individuals extracted their boldness, and surges ahead like a flash of lightning. Our protagonist collides his leg against the initial one and propels him backward as the rest begin to perspire. He then energizes his hand and strikes unimpeded, fistfuls of punches in succession prior, concluding the fourth with a savage knee blow. A valiant refuse bag makes an attempt to strike, but Chen merely seizes his hand and shatters it like pasta. The man howls in agony, only to be met with a quarter-pound fist directly to his nostrils. Witnessing his companions being tossed about, Jian is stunned into silence and contemplates how on earth our guy grew so powerful. Chen does not cease there and persists in hurling powerful punches. Remained, and just as he approaches the Cloud Executioner. Upon finally encountering him, Jian attempts to manipulate his own perceptions into thinking that he is the most formidable assassin in existence, and that he cannot forfeit. True to his benevolent nature, our protagonist jolts him back to reality with a crushing blow that propels him backward. Nevertheless, he does not halt there as he hastens, advances, and unleashes a flurry of strikes that dislodges multiple teeth. The Cloud Assassin tumbles across the terrain like an exaggerated tumbleweed, collides with a barrier. He attempts to lift his eyelids, only to find the fiend himself gazing directly at him. Our protagonist subsequently gazes down at Jian, now devoid of his self-respect, and reminds him that he previously warned the worthless individual to keep his distance. Fixating directly into his essence, he inquires of the mindless filth if he cannot even comprehend fundamental human language. The man, battered beyond identification, is unable to sense his lower limbs, and numerous bones throughout his body are fractured. Understanding he had tangled with the incorrect individual, he hardly succeeds in articulating an apology. Chen silences him by seizing his collar and pressing a blade directly against his visage. Mr. Premier Elimination Specialist perceives it distinctly in his gaze. There is entirely no reluctance to take a life. He completely lacks the presence of a typical student. Jian is unable to resist pondering what sort of torment could transform a person into a fiend like Chen. With frosty disdain, he warns the man to heed his words meticulously if he wishes to avoid a recurrence of this ordeal. He will not waver in dismantling them the next time they attempt anything foolish. That serves as his ultimate caution to them. Furthermore, He includes an additional point for emphasis. Should they venture even a mile near his sister, he will willingly eliminate each person associated with them, one after another. Subsequently, he lets fall the blade and strides back to Yuni's side before the melody is concluded. Ultimately, his sister is engulfed by her feelings. She is brought to tears by the sorrowful and achingly solitary verses. She weeps, perplexed about the struggles her brother endured that transformed him so profoundly over time. She even ponders whether her assistance during that period was insufficient. Resolutely, she turns to reprimand him appropriately, but she halts mid-sentence the moment she catches sight of the present in his grasp. The gleaming, gold-accented fountain pen she had always envisioned possessing is right before her gaze. Yoon flushes a vivid crimson with exhilaration. She can scarcely fathom that her sibling purchased her the latest holographic enchantment pen, which is pricier than their monthly lease. Her charming response brings joy to his heart. Her expression clearly indicates her reluctance to reciprocate, despite the fact that fulfilling that obligation would be the sensible choice given their overdue rent. Concealing his hand behind his rear, Chen quietly vows to safeguard his sister's happiness this time, and ensure she gains admission to her desired school. At home, his sister joyfully dedicates hours to crafting holographic illustrations in the atmosphere. Big Brother silently relishes her handcrafted ramen, and expresses his contentment with her joy regarding the present. Nevertheless, she remains concerned about him expending so much on her, when they have yet to secure next month's rent. He displays a radiant smile and discloses that their lease for an entire year is already taken care of. Big Brother boasts that his small entrepreneurial endeavor with a companion has been thriving recently, but Yun is keen and directs him a deeply suspicious glance. She is evidently not convinced by his convenient narrative. That being said, she refrains from pressing him any further. She can't even recollect how long it has been since her big brother has laughed so freely like this. She tenderly taps him on the shoulder and issues a straightforward appeal. Regardless of what he is clandestinely undertaking, he must ensure that he does not exhaust himself. In the interim, at a serene aquarium, President Ting divulges some startling information to his relative. The foremost physicians in the metropolis have pronounced that Mr. Top Assassin is gravely wounded and beyond salvation. More than half of the bones in his physique are fractured beyond adequate mending. His confrontation with Chen was already an eventuality the president did not foresee. Yet the appalling state of his body following the clash is even more astounding. His relative responds with indifference. She merely feels disheartened that the count of capable graduate students joining his group will now be diminished. However, the president is equally merciless, asserting that he will indeed excel more without that encumbering NPC hindering his progress. Subsequently, their uncle and the director of employment at the academy interjects. Gong Xuan composedly presents his findings on our protagonist's latest actions. His thorough examination concerning the turmoil stemming from the ranking ceremony has ultimately been submitted. There is certainly no uncertainty regarding the outcomes, and Chen genuinely holds a superior position compared to the student council president. That disclosure takes the previous honor student completely by surprise. The man subsequently provides him with a stern piece of counsel, mentioning that his father specifically sought a vice chairman of the alliance to assess his performance in the combat examination. Therefore, he must guarantee that he stands out prominently among the rest. Should he somehow fall short in this regard, the director suggests a different resolution. The emerald-haired girl, who is her uncle's preferred niece, will assist his team in achieving the top position overall. However, the council president categorically declines the proposal without any hesitation. He asserts that he did not even reveal his genuine prowess during the evaluation. President Ting possesses an unwavering assurance in his considerable dominance, and guarantees them he will conquer the entire academy single-handedly. Returning to the academy residences, our protagonist cleanses himself after completing his routine 100-mile jog with a weighted backpack. He is entirely focused on a singular objective, and that entails securing the $1 million reward in the forthcoming graduation assessment. This represents his sole genuine opportunity to honor his agreement with the Mithril Guild's Qingji and establish a reciprocal trade alliance with them. With merely a few weeks remaining before the examination, he reclines in bed, not to relax, but to continue striving, even in slumber. He steps into his infernal stronghold, where the colossal void spire of Demon King Lan Yu looms ahead. He ascends the lengthy staircase that leads to the entrance with complete confidence. His initial evaluation with the Gravehound King's class attained the commendable mid-ocean position. Conversely, the immense power of his Abyssal Fiend classification utterly overwhelmed the system. Even the demon heart itself could not accurately assess its genuine capabilities. The sole method to assess his outstanding courses becomes clear to him. He opens the Abyssal Spire and opts to evaluate their unrefined strength straight on the front lines. He enters, intrigued by the type of savage trial the tower will present to him. What he observes within causes his eyes to widen in astonishment. He discovers himself relocated to an unfamiliar realm where he is positioned on a colossal ivory sphere adrift in the cosmos. The instant he makes his initial stride, he promptly kneels down on one knee, struggling to maintain his posture. In the fallen star wastes, gravitational force is tenfold that of Earth, and Chen experiences the overwhelming weight penetrating deeply into his very bones. Behind him, the entrance to the tower entirely disappears. He is already aware that this signifies he must conquer the antagonist to restore the exit. Before any deadly creatures can launch an ambush, he must swiftly adjust and prevail. Nevertheless, a phantom lion lurking in proximity for its next meal appears disinclined to bestow upon him that indulgence. Faced with no alternative, Chen transitions to his lightning course immediately. The lion darts directly towards him. Still, he narrowly evades and propels an exact thrust into its shoulder. The creature bellows in rage, yet the blow is futile as it fails to hit any crucial area. He swiftly comprehends that his strikes are equally lethargic and inaccurate as his present capability to maneuver effectively. The spectral lion effortlessly immobilizes him to the earth and proceeds to sink its teeth into him like a taco, revealing merely how effectively these creatures have acclimatized to the intense gravitational forces. He permits the lion to gnaw on his arm for a brief period. He promptly transitions his class to the Infernal Demon. The alteration immediately offers an alternative kind of statistical enhancement. In return for a bit of velocity, he acquires considerable power and endurance, both of which are essential for hand-to-hand combat scenarios like this. His alteration in class brings the assertive pup crashing down and swiftly turns the battle to his advantage. The Rakshasa's capability to control gravitational forces is exceedingly beneficial. On a world with 10 times Earth's gravity, a threefold enhancer strikes with devastating intensity. At that moment, the lion bellows with rage, yet Chen exhibits no compassion, defeating the spectral lion into the Earth's crust. Subsequently, he lies stretched out on the floor to regain his breath. Gluttony astonishes him with a suitably earned advancement alert. It is subsequently clarified that each class is assigned a star rating. The quantity of stars signifies the extent to which the statistics fluctuate upon transitioning to that class. Purgatory Rakshasa boasts the highest star rating among all his accessible classes. Notwithstanding that benefit, he merely struggled for his survival against a B-rank spectral lion in this course. It becomes evident that he has a considerable distance to cover before attaining its prospective SSS classification. Subsequently, he feels irked to observe that gluttony does not even provide him the opportunity to consume the entity. This beast was evidently not the level champion, as an exit is expected to manifest once he triumphs over the current adversary. At that moment, a door swings open behind him. Multitudes of luminous orbs gaze from the shadows. The truth strikes him like a freight train. All the energy expended to conquer a solitary phantom lion pales in comparison to what lies ahead. Myriad B-rank creatures surge forth from the portal, scratching and tearing at him from all angles. At this moment, he finally comprehends the caution Rakshasa expressed. The fiend indicated that there are merciless creatures residing within the tower, and that his journey would be fraught with unceasing agony and torment. However, the fiend also advised him to persevere through all challenges, to adjust and become more resilient. Shortly thereafter, Chen abruptly awakens from slumber, sensing that he has just endured the most dreadful nightmare of his existence. All others in the space are enveloped in profound slumber, entirely oblivious to the torment of having his skin shredded by creatures. Our protagonist ultimately comprehends that the Void Tower of Purgatory is not merely a quick route to rapid advancement. He is merely at the beginning of an arduous, excruciating, and protracted odyssey. Several weeks elapse until it is ultimately the moment for the Academy's final assessment. Numerous dignitaries are present to witness the promising new cohort of learners. Recently established baseline criteria have also been disclosed for team formation, where a minimum of one high E-grade pupil must be incorporated in each gathering. The instance for establishing groups has arrived, and it is announced that all pupils can now view one another's standings. This enables individuals to promptly determine whom to enlist for their group. The learners are organized in sequence of position, from the topmost to the bottommost. However, Ma Long quickly observes something unusual. Chen is bewildered to find his name positioned at the very end. Every gaze fixates on him as the others ponder how a nearly grade C awakener could conceivably occupy the bottom position in the class. The envious pupils swiftly begin to speak derogatorily, assured that his elevated position was a mistake in the evaluation. Nonetheless, even they cannot refute that his power is authentic, and including him in their roster would undoubtedly enhance their performance. Council President Ting refrains from speaking as whispers spread concerning the simpleton who surely laments his decision to decline the leader's generous proposal. The individual orchestrating this plot is his very own uncle, Gong Xuan. The scoundrel presumed that nobody would extend an invitation to our lad for their gathering, after observing him positioned at the absolute lowest. His nefarious scheme was straightforward. If Chen fails to qualify, he will miss the opportunity to challenge the president's faction. Reverting to merely a few hours prior, the whole classroom almost implores President Ting to permit them to become part of his team. They make every effort to ingratiate themselves with him. However, Chen dismisses their request, stating that they can only include one additional individual. Returning to the present, all the remaining students establish their own groups, abandoning solely the most fragile dormitory. Long mentions that they attempted to solicit participation from everyone, yet no one is willing to accompany them. With only 4 members at present, they are unable to participate in the graduation assessment. He then complains vehemently that it is profoundly dubious that Chen's score was relegated to the bottom tier, rendering him ineligible to participate. Given that the selection standards necessitate a minimum of 1 top rank, it seems as though their group was deliberately singled out. The commencement examination is the sole method by which pupils can demonstrate their abilities and attract the attention of prestigious guilds. In the conclusive assessment, the quantity of contenders dictates the amount of creatures the team will encounter. Thus, there is no benefit in having a larger group. This is why no one is inclined to associate with the less capable individuals, as they would merely impose an additional strain. To exacerbate the situation, the trio of least skilled students all belong to the same residence, rendering them entirely marginalized. At that moment, a student shouts to Zuo, informing him that they are merely lacking 1 individual. The guy attempts to manipulate him, asserting that he certainly does not intend to jeopardize his chances on the graduation examination by collaborating with his feeble dorm companions. Chen comprehends that if this persists, there is a strong possibility that they will all be excluded and won't even have the opportunity to participate. Nevertheless, the dorm sovereign declines their proposal and proclaims that he will never forsake his housemates. This causes the opposing group to depart in fury, yet he continues to admonish them not to undervalue others. Reviewing the roster, Long declares that almost all individuals have already established their groups. They merely require 1 additional individual, yet nobody is inclined to associate with them. In the meantime, our young man gazes at the director and comprehends that the individual possesses the identical surname as the leader of the student council. Observing such deceitful tactics, Chen ponders whether Gong Xuan truly perceives him as such a significant danger. Refusing to succumb to despair, he asserts that he will undoubtedly participate in the competition and unleashes his electrifying power. Given that the others are being so candid about their animosity, he reassures himself that he doesn't have to restrain himself either. Or, akin to an expert in agriculture, he advances while. The authorities responsible are astonished by the unexpected exhibition of strength. Even his roommates start to contemplate what is happening. Our protagonist remembers that every Awakener institution has a distinctive tradition. To foster a competitive atmosphere, pupils are permitted to confront anyone at any moment. Although it might appear as boasting, this serves as a method to exhibit one's prowess and gain acknowledgement. In circumstances such as these, numerous individuals would decline to engage in combat from the outset. Nonetheless, he understands that the student council leader will not yield. Provided he triumphs over the blonde, All will be eager to ally with him. At that moment, a young woman emerges at the entrance and inquires of our protagonist whether he still requires assistance on his squad. She proceeds to express her desire to participate in this year's graduation examination. The vice president mentions that she attained a D grade during her middle school years, assuring him that she will not let him down. His roommates begin to lose their minds, questioning how he was able to attract such an exquisite girl to his side. Cheng and Ting appear bewildered, contemplating what is transpiring, as the director nearly gasps on his beverage. The pupils begin to chatter and ponder why an exchange scholar wishes to participate in the lowest-rated team for this assessment. No one genuinely understands her identity, yet there is speculation that she hails from the sanctified realm. The principal nearly blows a gasket and informs her that foreign exchange students are ineligible to take part in the school's graduation examination. He further asserts that Ling has never participated in any ranked assessments here. Additionally, she has not substantiated her rank, which violates all established regulations. Suddenly, the headmaster materializes and declares that the director is right. Gongxuan nearly suffers a cardiac episode upon encountering the elderly man. Nevertheless, the headmaster subsequently inquires why Ling desires to participate in the examination, given that her stay here will be brief. In the meantime, our protagonist is taken by surprise and contemplates how the headmaster seemingly appeared out of nowhere, given his status as a warrior class. The elderly gentleman clarifies that it wouldn't be just to the others if she participated in the examination, to which she merely complies. Chen begins to perspire as he comprehends that. He is unable to discern the rank of these two individuals. The director ultimately musters the bravery to voice their opinion and endorses the principal, asserting that an educational institution cannot operate without regulations. The headmaster then alters his demeanor and clarifies that the aim of this institution is to offer a nurturing atmosphere for those who seek enlightenment, enabling them to accomplish remarkable feats in their lives. Although the graduation examination is a customary practice, it remains one of the most significant milestones in a scholar's existence. He inquires how the institution intends to compensate for any detriment if a pupil is unable to engage due to abrupt alterations in regulations. The director begins to perspire profusely and contemplates whether he has ultimately been uncovered. He starts to contemplate whether the headmaster is orchestrating all of this solely for the child. Realizing it is not worth the hassle, he chooses to withdraw. The individual reassures himself that since the most capable students have already united into a single team, they are bound to triumph in the evaluation regardless. He inclines his head to the principal and expresses his regrets as he concedes that they neglected to consider how this framework could hinder certain students from seizing their opportunity for development. The director subsequently declares that even teams with lower rankings and those comprising fewer than 5 members are now eligible to join the tournament to promote equity. The quartet of roommates ultimately establishes their group and rejoice that they are now able to participate in the graduation examination. Positioned in the rear, the principal informs Ling that she appears excessively invested in the child. On one end of the examination, the president of the student council directs the group of the most formidable participants. Conversely, Chin heads the trio of the least skilled players. This piques the elderly man's interest regarding which cavern they will select and the total points they will ultimately achieve. The official subsequently declares that all leaders may now select which infernal cavern to venture into. At that moment his tablet chimed, startling him unexpectedly, as one captain has already made a decision. Chaos ensues as everyone panics upon witnessing the cave that Chen has chosen. His fellow dorm residents also become frantic, urging him to swiftly reconsider, questioning whether he truly comprehends the implications of his actions. Nevertheless, our protagonist remains reticent, fixated on the display. Throughout the final examination, teams of students venture into a treacherous cavern and accumulate points by vanquishing creatures. Vanquishing monster overlords within a brief duration awards distinct points, and the level of the dungeon dictates how many times the total is amplified. An F-rank dungeon can yield as much as 75 points, whereas an E-rank dungeon can offer a maximum of 100 points. The squad that achieves the top score is selected by the Imperial Guild, and the leading competitor is awarded a prize of 1 million UN. Returning to the selection chamber, the students converse about the record score in history being 90 points, a feat accomplished by the present leader of the Imperial Guild. Even conquering an E-rank dungeon necessitates a minimum of 3 competent D-rank combatants on the squad. This year, Ting's group could potentially exceed that achievement. The screen subsequently chimes and notifies everyone that an individual has already selected a demon's lair. The man is astonished when he observes that our son has selected a D-tier dungeon. No individual has ever successfully completed a D-rank dungeon prior to this, and all begin to speculate whether this was an error. Long inquires of our protagonist if he bumped his head or anything similar, as the dorm monarch utterly unravels at the spectacle before him. The intellectual attempts to reason with Chen, but he discloses that he deliberated extensively on this choice. The system subsequently chimes once more as the student council president also chooses the D-tier cavern. Ting's colleagues promptly embrace their captain's decision, enabling them to participate in the examination. The classroom erupts in excitement upon the declaration, while the group attempts to maintain a composed demeanor. The pale-haired goth girl mocks our friend for attempting to appear formidable, and presumes that he merely seeks recognition. The hairless man asserts that his feeble comrades would never consent to this, and that the squad will disintegrate. Extensive examination of Chen's visage reveals that he is genuinely not pretending in any way. He contemplates when his companion became this powerful, and how significantly he is transformed. Upon reaching a decision, the geek clicks the confirm button and chooses to rely on his companion. Yo also taps the green button, as he believes he has nothing to forfeit. The dorm monarch becomes irritated that the duo made their decision prior to him, and simultaneously activates the switch. Consequently, the system formally certifies their squad for the examining his fellow dormitory residents. Chen expresses his regrets and discloses that he selected this dungeon with the aim of becoming the highest scorer. He comes to understand that he is compelling them to partake in his vision, yet reassures them that they will ascend to the pinnacle collectively. Listening. With his declaration, the president abruptly rises and asserts that the foremost position is solely his. Chen pivots and confronts him head-on. Ting emanates a daunting presence and declares that there can solely be one most formidable pupil in the whole institution. Positioned at the rear, Ling is taken aback, as this marks the first occasion she has witnessed such intense feelings from him. The confrontation between the two of them is now exposed. The headmaster takes pride in the fact that the students are remarkably courageous. However, Ling experiences discomfort, knowing that our son selected a D-rank cavern, which even a C-rank cannot conquer independently. Although a pupil can accumulate 150 points from a D-rank cavern, the challenge is excessively steep. Furthermore, his companions are also ill-equipped for it. The head administrator remarks that they have merely around a month remaining, and it will be unattainable for them to enhance sufficiently in such a brief period. Nonetheless, he continues to anticipate the most favorable outcome. The narrative subsequently advances 2 weeks to the training fields, where all participants recline fatigued on the earth. Long inquires about the rationale behind engaging in physical training while others are utilizing simulation exercises. Chen had them undergo various types of drills, which resulted in significant frustration for them. Our protagonist clarifies that simulated training offers no genuine assistance whatsoever. Upon an individual's initial foray into a devil's cavern, their thoughts become vacant, and the sole factor that rescues them is their intuition. All this conditioning is designed to enhance their physical power, enabling them to accelerate more swiftly and respond more effectively. The most effective training would involve venturing into an actual dungeon and acquiring first-hand experience. Yet, individuals of their standing can merely fantasize about such prospects. Such chances are reserved exclusively for the privileged, who have never been commonplace individuals to start with. Even at that point, those privileged individuals will exert every effort to ensure that the masses never attain parity, allowing them to maintain their dominance. Those individuals possess access to assets that plebeians devote their entire existence endeavoring to acquire. The dorm monarch subsequently inquires about what typical individuals are expected to do in such a circumstance. Chen discloses his strategy and asserts that if they succeed in infiltrating the Imperial Guild, they can revolutionize the entire framework. The final examination represents the sole opportunity for anyone to genuinely outshine the elite. Given that this is his aspiration, Chen vows to exert every effort to fulfill the commitment he made, assuring that they will undoubtedly triumph. With merely 2 weeks left until the final assessment, our lad cultivates within the abyssal spire every night without fail. Conquering the spectral felines is no simple endeavor. Yet he remains unwavering in his determination to persevere, regardless of how harshly they assault him. 5 days prior to the test, his housemates are practicing with all their might. Our lad, on the other hand, exists on an entirely distinct plane. His astonishing routine renders the Hashira training arc comparable to a mere warm-up. With merely 2 days remaining, his competitor is evidently not neglecting their training either. However, Chen is advancing at an even swifter pace, and he can now assertively contend with an entire pride of lions beneath crushing gravitational forces. With crimson flowing down his visage, he has never appeared more ready to emerge victorious. On the day of the assessment, a diminutive drone hovers alongside the participants, serving as their navigators. The young men enter clad in coordinated attire, appearing exceptionally stylish. As soon as all attendees donned their wristbands, the examination formally commences. In the interim, the institution. The headmaster cordially welcomes Gonglin. The sharply dressed gentleman is President Ting's father, who co-established the Imperial Guild. The pupils are unable to avert their gaze upon encountering the co-leader of the Imperial Guild, gazing at him as if he were a rare creature from the zoo. Their curiosity escalates as they observe the guild co-founder and principal greet a polished white limousine. A crimson-haired gentleman, Carl Cavendish, serenely exits the automobile. The students go into a frenzy, as anyone would identify the vice chairperson of the World Guild Alliance. An individual of his caliber would typically never be seen in close proximity to this area. Within an exclusive chamber, the director informs the esteemed attendees that a total of 23 teams are engaging with F-ranked demon layers. Some groups opted for grade E layers, whereas merely 2 teams audaciously selected D-ranked layers. The direct Alliance Secretary Sigrid appears truly astonished that students would undertake such a foolhardy choice. Typically, even a D-rank group would diligently plan prior to attempting a grade D layer. She doubts if the Academy genuinely took the students' well-being into account. Upon hearing that apprehension, the director smoothly elucidates that the students are entirely aware of what they committed to. He emphasized that individuals who awaken without any genuine combat experience often find it challenging to contend with F-ranked creatures. However, the genuine danger resides in the layer's superior, which significantly surpasses the inferior creatures by numerous tiers. Numerous teams ultimately falter in the conclusion, unable to conquer the formidable antagonist. Nonetheless, circumstances are entirely distinct within E-rank tiers. Even the most fundamental creatures in that realm exhibit power comparable to that of an F-rank chief. That stark truth is an experience that students typically encounter through difficult lessons. The Alliance Secretary inquires if there exists any adequate protection once the circumstances become perilous. The director comforts her by stating that the Academy holds its most promising talents in high regard. To ensure the safety of students, a sentinel from the Imperial Guild is positioned outside each tier, prepared to intervene should any issues arise. Additionally, the bands that every student dons can immediately transport them away if they decide to capitulate, or if their existence is genuinely in jeopardy. Upon hearing this, the woman remains skeptical that the Academy possesses students skilled enough to confront a D-rank tier. She silently ponders how much longer those groups can feasibly endure. The director, nevertheless, is assured that the minor E-rank mischief makers will probably emerge in distress. Transitioning to the D-tier labyrinth teeming with enormous trees encased in dense ice, Chen's housemates appeared distinctly frightened. Anyone would be unsettled upon encountering the horrifying creatures that resemble an odd fusion of bats and monkeys. He promptly alerts his companions that those beasts plunge toward their prey in the blink of an eye, so they should remain vigilant. Abruptly, a swarm of the spectral monkey bats descends directly upon them. Astonishingly, every one of the lads succeeds to clumsily evade the creature's rapid assaults, while they remain exhilarated that they evaded an attack from a D-rank creature. Something even more outrageous grabs their focus. Our young hero stands serenely, with a thunderous blade in hand, encircled by the lifeless remains of beasts that now rest coldly at his feet. He instructs his team to prioritize their own safety initially, as they lack the strength at this moment, and to entrust the remainder to his discretion. At that moment, yet another spectral monkey bat propels itself toward them with incredible velocity, but they narrowly evade it just in time. Shenzhou abruptly comprehends that our protagonist had indeed been urging them to enhance their reflexes and burst speed to withstand adversaries such as these demons. Zhu clenches his jaw, aware that he has been referring to himself as the dorm sovereign all along. However, now His Royal Highness has no alternative but to depend on his unpredictable housemate. In the interim, Chen entirely eradicates the leftover phantom monkeys. They plunge toward him in surges. However, the Jigachad swiftly eliminates them before they can even comprehend that they have been severed from the server. The Dorm Monarch murmurs to himself that he has consistently heard from Ma Long that Chen was powerful, yet this is the first occasion he has observed it firsthand. To him, Chen hardly resembles an ordinary graduate student whatsoever, but rather akin to a seasoned warrior. As the carnage persists, the former dorm king senses envy seeping in regarding our protagonist's burgeoning acclaim. Suddenly, an additional creature materializes behind the ensemble, and he scarcely succeeds in parrying its blow. He seizes the beast's limb with his blazing hands and berates his colleagues. He vociferates at them to cease behaving like a burden and pull themselves together. Chen isn't the sole individual whose commencement is at stake. The others gaze at him, taken aback by his abrupt resolve. Motivated by the Dorm King's unwavering determination, Shenzhou invokes his botanical incantation, Vine Clasp, and effectively ensnares the monkey bat. However, to his astonishment, the beast escapes nearly immediately and even strikes Zuo in the process. Long unleashes his incantation, Frostbite Breeze, which merely hinders the creature marginally. Thus, they opt to merge their assaults. Collaborating, they succeed in temporarily subduing the creature and call out for the Dorm Monarch to grasp the opportunity. He energizes a nuclear explosive fire projectile that discharges a immediate impact, yet it scarcely leaves more than a handful of charred strands in its wake. He discharges numerous additional fiery projectiles at the demon, yet nothing appears able to extinguish it. Shenzhou and Extended are nearing their boundaries. The Dorm Monarch resolves that he can no longer restrain himself. He consolidates his power and releases a concentrated fire projectile directly at the creature, igniting a colossal detonation. As the haze dissipates, only an electrified framework is left behind. The unmanned aerial vehicle proclaims that it has effectively eradicated a D-class spectral simian bat. The trio collapses onto the earth, utterly exhausted. They are exhilarated by their achievement in vanquishing a D-class creature independently. Our lad approaches, somewhat astonished, and they promptly inquire whether he witnessed them dismantling it. The creature abandons a solitary finger bone as treasure, and Zuo nonchalantly asserts that eliminating it was a cinch. Chen, regardless, commends them, and shortly thereafter, the drone announces that all hostile entities within the Devil's Cave have been eradicated. Observing the broadcast, Director Gong is on the verge of losing his sanity at the sight of the incompetent students with no genuine combat experience triumphing over a D-tier menace, significantly exceeding their inadequate capability. The remaining personnel deliberately choose to stay mute. In the interim, the aide of Vice Chairman Cavendish quietly commends Chen for his exceptional accomplishments. He reflects inwardly that Chen's presence strongly evokes memories of a long-lost companion. The deputy chairman references Chen's name and records a reminder to keep him in mind, which instantly alarms President Ting's parent and the filmmaker. The director swiftly redirects their focus towards the student council group within the alternate D-ranked cavern to minimize additional attention on Chen. He highlights that the group has already arrived at the central zone, and the chairman's assistant commends their collaboration, likening it to the effectiveness of a skilled guild raid squad. This response delights Chairman Carl, who notes that the caliber of graduates this year seems genuinely outstanding in comparison to earlier cohorts. Director Gong softly remarks to himself that the genuine struggle has merely commenced, and the authentic display has yet to unfold before all those gathered. Within the D-rated Toxic Vine Cave, the President's group encounters an assault from miasmic poison fungi creatures that arise from every direction. A young woman strums her guitar and unveils a lament of deterioration as a celestial sorcerer connects the fungi using his astral energy, a peel capacity for a synchronized assault. He subsequently summons the captain, and the President lunges ahead with his sword poised to conclude the assault with flair. With a singular rapid blow, the fungal creatures explode as the leader unveils his. Incisive divide the fiery heavens. His colleagues notice that the creatures in this academic evaluation correspond precisely with those they faced in their prior training sessions. Due to this recognition, the group manages the situation with ease and minimal stress. They had anticipated that the commencement evaluation would be organized ahead of time by the Educational Administration, as adequate support guarantees a considerably more seamless journey in life thereafter. Holding that conviction, they start to commemorate in advance, as they are entirely assured that they will attain the champion title this year without facing any significant opposition. Revisiting the ultimate tier of the misty woodland, the lads are astonished that they have truly endured this long and arrived at the lair of the Lord. Amidst an icy barren expanse, they observe a spectral primate peacefully savoring its feast. The Dorm monarch begins to perspire immediately at the mere thought of the creature's formidable power. A single strike from that beast would likely propel him directly to the beyond. As if prompted, the beast gradually fixes its gaze on the most vulnerable individual in the assembly. Ma Long panics, and that solitary shriek is sufficient to awaken the monster. The enormous primate propels itself in their direction with a frightening bound. The young men dash off as if their very existence hinges on it. In the meantime, Chen lunges ahead with unwavering resolve. He leaps directly into its colossal visage with a fierce strike, subsequently linking a series of unyielding strikes, maneuvering its form expertly. He concludes the battle by tearing it into pieces of ground primate flesh. That brutal exhibition renders his faction speechless in wonder. Nonetheless, Chen feels frustrated that even D-rank creatures are not providing him with adequate experience. The spoils are underwhelming as... Suddenly he perceives his comrades exclaiming with enthusiasm that they have discovered massive mana stones. It appears the colossal primate was, storing them within a vacant tree trunk. His companions nearly salivate at the surprising bounty and eagerly extend their hands to seize the gems. Chen calls out a caution, yet he is a moment behind. The moment their hands make contact with the mana stones, a dazzling burst radiates outward. Within moments, the whole vicinity is encapsulated in frost. Shenzhou, submerged, and the unmanned aerial vehicles are entirely immobilized by the frigid gust. In the exclusive lounge, the live transmission suddenly ceases. The disreputable director grins, as though he had anticipated this result. He foresaw powerful creatures laying traps of this nature, and it was merely a question of time before Chen and his band of novices fell into one. Vice Chairman Cavendish appears dissatisfied, evidently troubled about the students' well-being. The director pretends to lament Chen's setback and asserts that there is no alternative but to remove them without delay. The headmaster opposes this view. He contends that they are not in imminent peril, as the wristbands will engage if the students' vital signs become irregular, and none of them have considered surrendering. He asserts that solely the participants ought to possess the authority to determine when they relinquish their efforts. Within the confines of the dungeon, Ma Long trembles in the frigid chill. Among all the attendees at the gathering, he is the sole individual who evaded being immobilized, attributable to his class's inherent strong resilience to cold. At that moment, Long perceives a spine-tingling cackle and detects a skeletal ice creature that appears to gaze directly into his essence without compassion. He acknowledges it as the sovereign of that den and remembers observing it referenced in the creature anthology previously. He swiftly recalls that it is indeed a cloud sorcerer that effortlessly governs both protective and aggressive powers, while it handles ice and snow with remarkable ease. He also remembers that the entity in front of him, which takes pleasure in dispatching its victims through extended torment, is referred to as the Bone Sovereign of Remnants. He comprehends that the ice bomb was merely a ruse, prompting him to swiftly pivot and flee to ensure his own safety. Long is acutely aware that he is ill-equipped to confront a C-class lord creature of this magnitude alone, regardless of the situation. He hurriedly moves toward Chen in a bid to liberate him. However, a frozen assault hits his leg prior to his arrival at the objective. The Bone Monarch chuckles at his suffering, as his wristband emits an alert indicating that his leg has been entirely penetrated. It provides him the choice to forfeit the assessment, yet Long persists in maintaining optimism and continues to attempt to unfreeze Chen before they forfeit their sole advantage. At that instant, an additional ice fragment pierces through his limb, which prevents him from liberating Chen, despite his fervent attempts. The Bone King relishes prolonged agony. It observes him withstand excruciating agony as his bracelet emits yet another alert regarding critical harm. It recognizes that his arm has likewise been penetrated, and records that his heart rate has escalated to a perilous state, subsequently presenting him with the choice to withdraw from the assessment once more. But the child descends into a recollection instead. He remembers that throughout his existence, he consistently evaded difficulties the instant adversity emerged, and that tendency consistently abandoned him every single occasion without fail. He recalls how individuals disregarded him, harassed him, and mocked him. However, he and his companions exerted considerable effort to arrive at this juncture. He perceives this instant as his ultimate opportunity to alter their destiny. Thus he gathers the remnants of his vigor, rises to his feet, and ultimately succeeds in liberating Chen. He holds his ground as the Bone King hurls a relentless onslaught of icicles directly at him. Just as the strike is about to hit, he emits a powerful bellow, and Chen ultimately awakens at that precise instant. The frozen mass fractures into fragments, and Chen propels himself ahead as he swiftly transports Long away from peril in a single fluid motion. This abrupt flight takes the Bone King by surprise, as Long swiftly comprehends that Chen has successfully liberated himself from the frigid confinement all on his own in the end. The warrior expresses gratitude to Long for his prior assistance, and promptly inquires about his well-being with evident worry. Extended responses indicate that the hemorrhaging has currently ceased, allowing him to endure without additional complications, at least for the time being. He notifies Chen that the creature they confront is a cloud variety, C-rank lord referred to as the Bone King, and he cautions that it poses significant peril in battle. He emphasizes that they must steer clear of becoming immobilized once more at all costs if they wish to have even a slim opportunity to endure this confrontation. They pivot and observe the Bone King gather momentum for an enormous aggregation of ice fragments, which swiftly consolidates into a colossal glacier poised to launch an assault. Long is astonished, coming to the realization that the creature is poised to unleash a colossal ice bomb upon them. In the following moment, the explosive descends and envelops everything in searing brilliance. The creature starts to chuckle. However, the noise abruptly ceases as it becomes aware that both of them remain unscathed following that catastrophic assault. Chen alters his class to the Doomflame Monarch, and triggers a Cloud Warrior Frost Physique, bestowing upon him total invulnerability to icy damage. The alteration additionally enhances all his defensive attributes in frigid surroundings, thereby converting the arena into his benefit instead. The Bone King emits a chilling wail, and even Long experiences bewilderment as he observes his companion, who was intended to be a voltage assassin, transform into a cloud-like fighter instead. He wonders if Chen could be one of those exceptional talents, capable of simultaneously awakening two distinct classes without limitations. Chen merely expresses regret for misinterpreting the circumstances previously, and acknowledges that he pulled his companions into a perilous confrontation due to that error. He transitions classes once more into a sinister fiend. He then brandishes his purgatorial warrior blade, and confronts the Bone King with the unwavering determination to conclude the battle at that moment. His closest friend's mouth gapes in astonishment at that location. Typically, all Awakeners emerge with a singular class in which they can focus, but among them lies an extraordinarily rare possibility that an individual may hold two classes at once. These dual classes are so infrequent that they can be counted on one hand. Such rarity transforms them into coveted assets that every prominent guild fervently desires. Nonetheless, that by itself was not what astonished him. He observed attentively and recognized that Chen is not utilizing one, not a pair, but three entirely distinct categories. Moreover, each of those categories exists in a realm of its own. Possess. In his profound demonic guise, Chen's attributes escalate at an extraordinary pace. His immense physical power propels him into the air like a missile. He surges ahead with furious velocity toward the leader, whose self-satisfied smirk evaporates in the presence of our boy's lethal presence. With a swift and seamless action, he cleaves the skeletal fiend as effortlessly as a blade through margarine, advancing to level 17 and acquiring an uncommon treasure drop. Gazing at the broken carcass of the lifeless skeleton, his companion remains astonished that he effortlessly eliminated a C-rank dungeon master in a single blow. Our acquaintance nonchalantly brings to his attention that the others remain completely encased in ice. Ma Long abruptly experiences an epiphany, and comes to the realization that he utterly overlooked his other companions throughout the entire confrontation with the boss. He dashes off to liberate the others before they transform into cursed frozen desserts. Upon his departure, Chen observes that he has the choice to consume the Frost-Lich Monarch. In the absence of any onlookers, he swiftly assimilates the defeated Lair Sovereign and obtains the Cloud Sorcerer class. Owing to the supervisor's polar brilliance dazzling every unmanned aerial vehicle in the vicinity, no one will uncover his concealed talent. Suddenly, he is greeted by yet another unexpected alert. His swift executioner classification advances as, certainly, permitting him to incorporate a star to improve one of his attributes. The setting subsequently transitions to the D-ranked hideout, Gloomvine Grotto, where the council leader's squad is becoming completely inundated. Regardless of how intensely they assault, the D-rank adversary demonstrates to be exceedingly resilient for these novice awakeners. The sorcerer, binding the creature's actions with shackles, is already teetering on the brink of exhaustion. The arrows of the lightning archer resemble a gentle massage rather than genuine harm to the lair lord. They are flung about like inexpensive action figures in a cheerful meal toy container. The embarrassment prompts them to ponder if all those battle drills were utterly futile. They have never encountered anything remotely akin to this magnitude of strength. The sorcerer swiftly understands that the leader is their sole genuine chance of overcoming the antagonist. Deep in the backdrop, the president strikes a theatrical stance. He powers up his supreme ability while receiving enhancements from the supportive spellcasters. Once sufficient energy is amassed, he propels himself toward the adversary wielding his fiery blade. The sword penetrates directly into its center and bursts forth into a tempest of fire that dissolve it from the core outward. His comrades burst into applause, commemorating the ascent of a legend whose name is destined to be inscribed in the annals of history. The unmanned aerial vehicle reports that their squad has successfully eliminated a Grade D hideout in slightly more than 30 minutes. Thoroughly exhilarated, his crew is convinced they secured the top position. No other squad could possibly surpass that time. They emerge from the den with anticipation, hoping to find their names gleaming triumphantly at the pinnacle of the standings. Before long, they traverse the corridors brimming with pupils who capitulated and vanished prematurely. The majority appear completely devastated, still tormented by the specters they faced for the first time. The president's subordinate happens to notice our young man and his team positioned to the side as well. A single look at his weary team reveals the truth. They must have failed immediately upon entering. The minion self-importantly strides over, ridiculing Chen for allegedly faltering midway after all that audacious demeanor previously. The devoted canine keeps howling, yet his owner quiets him, due to the impending arrival of the Alliance vice chairman. The refined gentleman applauds gently and commends the pupils for their outstanding presentation. As he approaches, the president maintains a composed demeanor as his subordinates nearly quiver with anticipation in the presence of one of the globe's most influential individuals. President Ting assuredly offers his hand for a greeting. Nevertheless, Mr. Cavendish entirely overlooks it, striding directly by him without a single look. Enduring. Such blatant disgrace causes the president to feel his ego crumble from within. To exacerbate the situation, the vice chairman vociferously labels his opponent a genuine icon. The individual clasps Chen's shoulder and proclaims for all those in proximity to hear that he completed a D-rank dungeon in a mere 20 minutes. Not even elite squads from his own guild have ever reached such a milestone. Both the council leader and his henchmen are left utterly mute. They struggle to comprehend how 4 insignificant underdogs outperformed their complete 10-member team in a timely manner and successfully cleared a D-rank lair. In the meantime, Chen doesn't flinch even slightly. Being lauded by the most dominant individual in the nation holds no significance for him. Nonetheless, he cannot shake off the curiosity regarding why this prominent personality took the time to visit this institution. Regardless, Carl Cavendish coolly asserts that he will retain Chen's name distinctly in his memory. He then directs his attention to Gong Lin, the individual who originally extended the invitation to him. The vice chairman nonchalantly observes that his offspring possesses talent as well, providing a poorly conceived praise at most. That creates a sour sensation for both the father and the son. Nevertheless, the vice chairman declares that it is his moment to depart. The director swiftly intervenes to alleviate the tension. He proclaims the ultimate outcomes, revealing that both leading teams have reached an equal score. Consequently, they will all obtain a formal invitation to become members of the Royal Guild. That announcement resembles divine melodies to Chen's housemates, as they are essentially secured for eternity due to his substantial support. President Ting's minions rejoice as well. Yet the man himself remains quite dissatisfied with this result. Subsequently, the director states that the captains will be awarded administrative positions within the guild in recognition of their leadership, and the $1 million cash reward will be distributed equally among them. Upon hearing that, both team leaders exhibit clear astonishment. Chen discreetly frets that 500,000 may be insufficient to clear his obligations. He must devise an alternative method to generate the necessary funds and uphold his commitment to the Mithril Exchange Guild. However, that anxiety might be irrelevant, as President Ting categorically rejects the notion of a draw. He audaciously proclaims that a duel between two will establish the genuine victor. There can be only one champion. That abrupt obstacle is so astonishing that it captures the focus of the director, and additionally, the deputy chairman. Concerned by his nephew's impulsive decision, the director quickly endeavors to convince him to embrace the existing result instead. The elder statesman clarifies that a draw is already the most favorable resolution, particularly following his prior embarrassment. He stays composed, believing our son will dismiss such a trivial confrontation. However, my companion promptly embraces the challenge, stipulating that the victor claims the complete 1 million reward. That zesty turn is audacious enough to prompt the vice chairman to reconsider and call off his exit. With that resolved, Chen advances to confront him head-on, prepared to resolve the matter definitively.